Welcome everybody. It's nice to see such a large crowd. My name is Kathy Lewis. I've been playing in orchids for over 30 years now. I am an horticulturist by trade, so I started as a landscape maintenance person. And somehow I ended up in orchids. And I couldn't be happier. Got me inside, meaning in a structure. So welcome. I'm doing a demonstration on repotting and mounting. Okay? Any questions you have while I'm doing it, please let me know. Gosh, I forgot to do a phalaenopsis. Go figure. Ah, yes. I did that. Yeah, you do. Okay. I'm going to go mostly over the 5 major groups of orchids and how you're going to repot. Okay? The first thing I'm going to do. Oh, I'll start with a really easy one. A vanda. A vanda. Okay? Everybody know how to grow a vanda? Everybody knows that they take more water than you want? No. Vandas are very heavy waters. If you've been in the vanda house, you saw how beautiful it was. That vanda house, irrigation goes off every morning and runs for 8 minutes. It's fertilized at least once a week, and the fertilizer comes through just like it's been watered. Okay? So, hence why everything looks so beautiful in the vanda house. Okay? Vandas don't need a container. You can actually just mount it or wire it straight to a wire. Just like this. There's a couple wires on there, you want it against the wire, and you can hang it up anywhere you want. It doesn't necessarily need a basket. That's more your visual pleasure. Okay?
Does it take sun?
With vandas, the more narrow the leaf, the brighter light it gets. There are only a few vandas that take full sun. Okay? So when you see more of a strap leaf like this, you cannot put it in the sun. The thinner the leaf, the more light it, and using the word sun in orchid world, sun, it will take. Okay? Go ahead.
Question. Is the pink one that's blooming right there, is that a vanda? Is that what you mean by a skinny leaf?
See that thing right there?
Uh-huh.
That's a vanda. That's
Okay.
the same thing as that.
Same thing. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. As you can see, the vandas get really tall. And you can take tip cuttings from them. And that's what all these cuttings are that are over in the vanda house for sale. They're tip cuttings off of really big plants somewhere. Okay? You need to count down 3 roots and take your cut. If you don't have any roots up here, you have to at least go down 3 roots before you cut it. Okay? The only reason you're going to cut it is because maybe it looks like a palm tree and you got a long thing and the bottom of it looks like crap. So those are the reasons you cut it. Or it's just getting too tall. The other thing about vandas is you do not want these roots to touch the ground. Okay? It acts like a highway for insects. They just crawl right up it. So if they start to touch the ground and you can't get it any higher, cut them. There is times where you can cut them. Okay? Okay.
When is the time?
In the spring or when they touch the ground. Okay. You're not going to whack them all the way up here. You're only having a few down at the bottom. Okay? Does it hurt to wrap them up in a knot? Yes, it does. Because then they sprout and you end up with this knot with all these roots coming out. I've done that. That's why it's like, no. I ended up having to cut those balls of roots out.
What was the question?
When they transport vandas, like here, they'll get, if it's a long root system, you get these roots really wet and they're very pliable. So they wrap them up and tie them up so we can transport them without falling on them. Okay? I'm pretty sure that's what you saw.
Yeah.
And anytime I sell one wrapped up like that, last thing I say is make sure to undo it when you get it home.
Can you cut it across? Is that gonna hurt? If it's on the floor, can you?
No.
Yeah, but you want to cut it across down here, not up here. Okay?
That's why I don't touch it. That's it.
Okay. As far as I'm concerned, I've pretty much covered culture. There's not much to it. They're really easy as long as you like the water.
So what about mounting?
If they don't bloom, they probably aren't getting enough light. And that goes true with all of your orchids. If your orchids sit in a spot for a year and they haven't bloomed in that spot, bingo, move them into brighter light. Okay? It should fix everything for you. Hopefully.
If you don't have an automatic watering system that can fertilize, how do you fertilize them?
There are different ways. You can get a sprinkling can. I go more with a sprinkling can because the water comes out faster than something that there's a product on the market. They're called Siphonexes. It's a brass fitting. You can fit to your hose. And it goes into a bucket of fluid. And it comes out into your hose. There's several products like that that have these sprayers you can attach to the hose. And you just go by and spray them down. And I hate the word spray. I want to use hose or shower. Because shower and hose are more what I want you to do to your orchids. Spray means to me, and you can see my hand. I can't do that. Okay? Okay.
One more question. I was at the Sarasota Orchid meeting the other night, and they suggested getting the empty tea bags and putting the slow release in there if you have them attached to the palm trees, and when it rains, it would slowly trickle down on it.
Okay, here's the thing about fertilizer.
Uh-huh.
It only goes straight down.
Uh-huh.
It's not going to go across your leaf. It's only running right down that thing and hitting the ground.
Okay.
It's only hitting what roots it can. So it's not hitting the whole plant. It's only right where it's going out of. Any of those baskets, any of that stuff, great idea, but it's still not covering your plant. It's just going straight down the plant and off the bottom. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Can you mount them? Bandits?
You can. You can mount them to driftwood. Someone asked me about putting them against the wall earlier. I'm going to tell you, I wouldn't go there. I don't think it's good enough air circulation for them. And I don't know why, because I put a piece of vanilla against the wall and let it grow up it without a problem. But I won't do that to this vanda. Go figure. Okay.
Can you bring one back if the leaves are turning yellow?
If the tip comes out in your fingers, throw it away. It's not worth the trouble. Okay? And the only reason I'm saying, if it's something that's going to spread from one plant to the other, and you leave it in there, you're going to lose a lot of plants.
What's the pole hardiness?
That Vanda house, 55.
So nothing below 55?
And different Vandas will take lower temperatures, but that house at 55 is when the curtains go down and it's kept warm. Vandas, generally if they're in bud or bloom and it's below 55, you're going to lose your flowers. Okay? Or below 55, did I say that right? Mm-hmm. You run the risk of losing your flowers. Okay? It depends. Some of them will bloom once a year, others will bloom several times. Just
Because we lost our flowers with the poles.
if there's several of them that are multiple times a year bloomers, and then there are others that are just once. So. Okay, am I finished with Vandas yet? Mounting, yes. You can mount them. Sorry, one more thing. I pulled this piece of I believe it's cedar, might be cypress, out of the to-go area over there, shopping area. Yes, you can.
Oh.
Okay? But why?
Pretty.
Aesthetically, it's pretty this way. But for
But
me, it's
less
like, why bother? Okay? While I have this piece of wood in my hands, mounting orchids is a great thing. I have a lot of mounting orchids. The first thing you need to check is that mount. If it's not firm and you can stick a nail in it, or it's really soft, you do not want to put your orchids on it. Okay? Orchids hate composting material, which goes against everything you know. If you're a gardener, you're probably looking at me going, "You lie." No, I'm not. Okay? Orchids are epiphytes by nature. They would prefer to live on something rather than in something. Okay? Okay. Next up, dendrobiums. And I love dendrobiums. They're one of my favorite plants. As you can see, yeah, at this point, yep, I agree. It needs to be repotted. Okay? No problem. Yes, it needs to be repotted. Dendrobiums do like to be kept in small containers. You do not want to overpot them. You pot them due to the root ball, not to the foliage on top. Okay? So I've got dendrobiums that are 6 foot tall. They're in 8-inch pots. So as long as they're standing up and good and my mix is fine, I'm going to leave them in there. And that's really why I need to repot this, is that my mix is starting to go south on me. Okay? The bark mix that it's potted in is starting to decompose and compost. And that's when I got to get my orchids out, because they don't like orchids. Yay! Thank you! Okay, when I cut my plants, I always make sure that I use fire. I just torch my clippers. Fire is the one that kills the most, takes care of just about everything, so that's why I use fire.
Hydrogen peroxide?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you over the fire.
How do you feel about hydrogen peroxide?
If that's what you got, use it.
Okay.
Anything, but fire is going to kill the most. Okay? The other thing is, if I get these really hot and I want to cauterize something on my plants, like, I'll go there later. Real hot, you hear that, that's what it does. It just seals the leaf or the roots up. Okay? Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is cut all these roots away. All of these roots, okay? The reason I'm cutting them away is because they are aerial roots. They're used to being in the air. I'm going to shove them in a pot with mix. And if I don't cut them, they're going to rot in that pot with that mix. Okay? So I know it's a necessary evil. Yep, I'm going to cut a root. I'm going to cut a whole bunch of roots. But this plant will produce more. Okay? Okay, so just time like and then I'll go in there and try it out. Once again, I'm going to be cutting most of those roots away. Yeah, I get that reaction a lot. That camera should be up here watching your guys' faces. You can do that, but again, I gotta cut those roots, so yeah, if I soaked that and got it all up, I would still have to cut it. Okay. Bottom of my pots, you'll find the lime styrofoam peanuts. The styrofoam peanuts are put in there for drainage. When I was a kid, it was rocks or clay pots. Now they're using styrofoam. Makes everything so much lighter. Okay? Oh, the mix is wet. I can feel it holding moisture. And these are just water dips. Go ahead.
Just a tip though on the peanuts.
Oh yeah, you don't want to use cornstarch ones. You want to make sure they're true styrofoam. If they're cornstarch, they melt in the bottom of your pots. True. Yeah. Okay, I'm happy. I got almost all those roots cut away. Yeah, I got past that daintiness about a year in. And you have to remember, I've worked in places like this, so it's like, hurry! Sharp clippers would help too. Okay, so now I'm happy. And while I have this out, I can show you, it's a rhizome. This is the oldest growth. This is where that plant started in the pot. And you can see the progression. It gets taller every time. That's usually what happens. Sometimes this might be slightly smaller, and I knew I should have repotted it or done something different. Okay? Okay. So with a plant like this, I want at least 4 of these canes, even though they don't have any leaves on them. I know they're good, so I can actually take this plant and top these back. Okay? You have these little places right here on them that they just kind of come apart right there. You can cut them, it really doesn't matter.
Can you pot that piece?
Can you
Okay, this is
start
what
a
they
new-
call the back bulbs. It depends, you know, this is the kind of stuff I lay on the bench and put it somewhere where I can water it every 2 to 3 days. And if it starts producing new roots and I see some little eye down in there starting to come out, then I'll do something. But I'm not gonna put it in a pot until I see something coming out of it. Okay? Those back bulbs can produce new growth, and it's also an ideal thing for me. I'll take that out and stuff it in a vine, a woody vine. I'll stuff it down in there and it'll stick to my tree or not. Stuck to trees. I do a lot of that as well with those back canes and back bulbs. Okay? Okay, so I have 4 here.
The ones without the leaves, are they, they've already bloomed?
They bloomed, but I'm still leaving them on because they can be a storage unit and they can bloom again. Okay?
I got a lot of sticks.
When dendrobiums get to the top of their newest growth, that top blooms. A lot of cane dendrobiums then will go back and bloom several different spots down the lane. The older your plant gets, the more you will see of that. Does everybody understand what I'm saying there? Okay. Okay, so then I'm going to bring this plant over here, and I'm going to gauge that pot size by the root ball, which I don't have very much. So it's not going to go in a very big pot. I got some 5-inch pots here, and even that's almost too big for it. Everybody see that? Actually, that looks pretty good. I'm not going to put it in anything bigger. There's no roots on it. If I put it in something like this, whoa, I'm way over potting that plant. And it will be so busy trying to fill this pot with roots that the top of it will get lost. And that's what happens when you overpot an orchid. They tend to go into a decline when you get them in too big of a pot. Okay? Okay, so back to you can use clay. This is where you go plastic. Your preference, it really doesn't matter. I tend to use clay. It's heavier, especially when I have a plant like this that's on the larger side that has some weight to the bottom. And this is where the rocks would come in handy too. Put rocks in the bottom, it adds a little weight to the pot. Okay? So where I snap that cane, that butt end, I'm going to put it on the far side of the pot. Oh, Starful Peanuts in there first. That dog was so comfy.
Especially lives for life is my lab.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, she doesn't bathe.
Her name's Olivia. I should have called her Southward.
Okay, dendrobiums. If I'm going to grow them, I'm generally going to grow them in a bark mix. And they have the bags up there for sale. Our bark mix is usually orchiata bark, sponge rock, charcoal, and hydrocone. The 4 things. Yep. So that's what this is. It's a mixture. My 5-inch pot, the styrofoam peanuts, a handful across the bottom. Again, just for drainage. And I have seen plants grown in styrofoam peanuts too. Or like those big grammatophyllums. They'll come in styrofoam. Okay, butt end on the far side of the pot. Everybody see how that's set in? Then I'm going to put the bark down in there. Give it a shove here and there. Sorry, I know you just can't see it. Okay.
Is that a shallow pot
This
for
is.
that reason?
No, I have a collection of all my
So if you
pots.
had a deeper one, it wouldn't matter?
It would,
Okay.
and I do. I just,
I just noticed.
5
that was-
inch.
Yeah, I just noticed that was really shallow.
yeah, bowl pot. Yep, okay. So I got a bunch of bark in there, trying to make it so everybody can see. I like to use plant clips. And I like to use plant clips on my orchids. These are plant clips. Okay? And let's see, maybe if I do this. Good. This. There. Does everybody see? Thank you. Can everybody see now? Okay. So this is a really long clip. And I always buy long ones because I can always cut them down to the right size of the pot. But I do have some smaller clips here. So the clips are used. I want to use this big one. The clips go across the rhizome and clip the plant into the pot. Okay? Sorry I didn't cut the end. Everybody see that?
That's how you use them.
It's so funny to watch people with those clips. It's so funny. I've seen them for steaks. I've seen them for all kinds of things. Nope, this is a clip, and this is what it's used for. Okay, everybody see that back there?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm still going to tell you that my plant's a little wobbly, so I'm going to go in and stake it up with a stake. My main concern now is to get it as steady as I can in the pot. If it wobbles in the pot, it's not going to root. Okay? So on that note, I generally tell people to hold off on their repotting until they're sure there's no more cold. If you're moving your plants in and out due to the cold, you don't want to do any repotting until you're done moving them. Just for that reason, because fresh repots in and out, they tend to wobble up and get loose and they won't be happy. So don't go home and repot all your plants if you got a cold front coming. Okay? Okay. So again, I've told you it's growing on a rhizome, and that rhizome is going to grow across the pot. So I tend to put my stakes in the back, and I guess I should have said, oh yeah, I'm left-handed. So I'm sure everything's looking a little backwards to y'all. So then I'm going to tie it, so I'm pulling it back towards me, so I have a little more pot for that new growth to go out. Okay? Where'd my twisty tie go?
Isn't there a little spool right there? It's right in front of you.
No, I'm not nervous. When I'm working with a new growth, unless I know it's all the way formed and as thick as it's going to go, I'm going to stick a little bit of my finger in there just to give it a little room so the twisty tie doesn't girdle it as it grows. Okay? So then when I get back to the second one, I can just pull that really close because it's all finished. It's not going to get any bigger. And then to the stake. Okay, so I'm happy here. Again, I want it up a little bit more. I'll push it down, get it as straight as I can, and I'm done. Just a little more mix in there. And don't forget to cut that end off. But you don't want to watch me fight with that clip. It's not a pretty sight. To cut it. Okay. So it's holding up pretty good, even with that clip hanging out like that. Okay. Any questions about repotting dendrobium? There are huge ones. I try to pick one fairly good size so you can see it. Don't be scared if they're really big. It's just it's more that repotting when that media has gone south is your whole problem. Okay?
Do you water it?
No, because I just watered my plants. One of the weird things with orchids is they're like, they tend to want to search for that water. So one of the growers I used to work for, we used to take these plants and put them under the bench
And they would only get the water that came down through the bench, and only that kind of light until we saw them get roots. And then when they got roots, we'd bring them out, put them on the bench. They'd go through the regular watering thing. So I won't, because I know I just watered this plant, and I'll water it in 4 or 5 days. Dendrobiums, I tend to water more than Cattleyas, and they're great bright white dendrobiums. I received a lot of damage from mildew. And my poor orchids had to come out of my greenhouse because it went down. And I threw huge dendrobiums out on my screen enclosure around my pool. They hated it. It was way too bright. They lost a lot of their leaves. And for all of you who have orchids from Milton, good luck. You know, your plants have never lived through anything like they've just lived through this past summer. So we really don't know what's going to happen with them. And the farther we go out, the more damage you see. That's just the way orchids work. Okay? Okay, go ahead.
Do you like to lay off your watering in the wintertime like some people do with the dendrobiums?
I tend to go longer out. You don't want to water orchids when it's cold outside in the cold with cold water. So there are lengths of 10 days or longer that none of my orchids got water because I couldn't get to the hose in order to water them when it was warm enough to water. So it's different than your yard plants. They would prefer to be dry when it's cold. Go ahead.
And Vandas?
Just like everybody else, Vandas hate cold. 55 and below, yeah, you've got to protect them.
Then you bring them in
or out, or you know the things that are stuck out on the trees out there. When it gets cold enough, we'll wrap them with blankets.
Yeah.
And don't forget that kind of trick. Like I have a bathtub out in the middle of my yard that's full of vanilla, and I got all these old Christmas lights wrapped around it. When it gets really cold, I plug in the lights. They add some heat. So things like that. I know the new small ones don't do that, but some of the old ones, if you have them, don't forget. I've heard of heating pads, all kinds of things you can do to keep them warm. But have fun. I have huge pots like this out in my yard, and this year they took them between Milton and cold. It's like, yeah, we're done. Okay. Okay. Back to dendrobiums. Any questions about it?
Can you mount them?
This kind of dendrobium, I tend to say you're better off keeping in a pot or down low on in a V or something, because the canes keep coming out and getting bigger and bigger. Now, if we were talking about a pendulous dendrobium or a dendrobium aggregatum, or there's lots of dendrobiums you can mount. Just these are not ideally mounting type of dendrobium.
Is that called a soft cream?
No, this is part of the high grade. You can see the noblates there, that white blooming. If you didn't notice, out in between the greenhouses, they're just prolifically blooming down the side of the Bismarckia palms over there. Just beautiful. So, okay, I'm finished with dens unless somebody's got a question. Dens and bandits. Lady slippers. This won't take long. Lady slippers, the one with the pouches on them. One of my favorite plants. This one is so lady slippers tend to like a little bit more moisture, or kept a little moisture than other cattleyas and dendrobiums. So I tend to mix something in there to hold the bark mix with it. These are mixed with a combination of bark mix and tree fern.
A tree what?
Tree fern. Tree fern. Yep. Lady slippers, sorry, have very heavy, hairy roots. So, this is an old plant. I probably had this plant for 8 years now. Last year it was in the show. And as they get older, they start to get bigger, but they also will start to naturally separate themselves. You can see that it's gonna, if I pull gently even, I think it will come apart for me. And the reason that's happening is where it originally started, that
first bloom spot, it's gone. Lady slippers and a lot of orchids, after they bloom, that whole fan, that whole cluster of leaves that that bloom spike came out of, slowly but surely dies away. And as that's dying away, you got new growth coming out. And that's where the next flowers will come from. And for me, I tend to have slippers around for like a year and a half, 2 years, before I can get them pretty big. But they do take a little time to get to rebloom after they've originally done. Okay? So as I said, they're very heavy, hairy, that's what I said, very hairy roots. A lot of these are rotting, so I'm going to go in and take them. Again, I could naturally separate this plant, but I really don't want to. I'm trying to keep it as one big one. There is nothing left in there except for a few hairs. Okay. So with these, this is a 4-inch pot, and I could almost set it right back down in that 4-inch pot. In fact, I think I will. Okay? I can because it came out of this 4-inch pot. So I can put it in a dirty pot because I know this plant came out of this dirty pot. I can't take this dirty pot and put something else in it because I run the risk of something happening. Something getting something from something else. Does that make sense? Okay, so if you're using clay, good luck. Couple different things you can do. I used to run mine through the dishwasher. I'd clean them first and get all the debris off, run them through the dishwasher, make sure they're running through the heat cycle because the heat's really what's going to kill it. That's not really going to do everything I wanted. You can soak them, whatever you can do to clean them. I've since learned that in order to get that virus out of the air, they have to be cooked. So that's why I go for it. If you want to put them in the oven, but if you know somebody's got a kiln, go drop them in the kiln. Get them to 1,000 degrees. They're clean, they're cooked, don't have to worry about it. So those are your options, however you can figure out how to get them as clean as possible. But some people have friends with kilns. Some people, one of the growers that I knew used to save all his pots, and he had someplace commercially he would take them and they burn them for him. So
if you had a new pot, you wouldn't have to go through all that.
right, new pot, don't have to worry about it. Plastic pots, bleach and water. Bleach and water, make sure you rinse them really well so there's no bleach on them, you're done.
If
Okay?
they sit for a while, would they be okay?
What do you
If
mean?
it was sitting for a year, would you still need to sterilize it?
I would, just because the virus is really a big thing in the orchid world when you get really big into it. So, no, I do have a bunch of clean pots that I'll leave sitting on my bench for a year before I reuse them. So go figure mine out. Doesn't really make sense, does it? Okay, so back to the slipper in my old pot because I don't want to put it in a really big pot. Tree fern. Tree fern is sold several ways. Tree fern. Oh. Tree fern. Now, and then this is tree fern. Okay? Tree fern is very porous. It holds a lot of moisture this way. Not so much this way. When you mount a plant on tree fern, you're going to water it probably every other day, every third day, you're going to water it. When you plant something in tree fern, it depends on what you're planting. For my slipper, probably every 3 days. But it will be mixed with bark, so it'll give it a little bit more drainage capacity. And all I do is just stick it in there and mix it up with my existing bark and put it in the pot. That's all I do. You can see it down in there. It's a little bit of bark and a little bit of tree fern.
So no styrofoam.
Yeah, there's styrofoam in the very bottom. Yes, sir. And I'm pushing the plant together, but I'm dropping it down in there. And I don't have to stake or clip this thing because they usually don't need it. But if it was popping out, I would. And this would probably be the one and only type that I would water when I got finished repotting.
Would or wouldn't?
I would.
Why is that?
It's a lady slipper because it's a lady slipper. And those hairy roots, I just want to put some water on it. Okay? Okay, now I didn't mention tags, but every plant you buy usually, or most all your plants that you buy can have a tag. The tag has the name of the plant usually. Other people will also write when they've repotted their plants on their tags. Great idea. That way when you look at it in 4 years, go, oh, that's why I really need new media in there. That's pretty much why they tag it and date it so they know when they're going to need to repot it. And the name's on there. It's very important if you end up showing your plants or something on that one. Okay? So slippers, you want to keep them moist. Don't let them ever go dry. Make sure, again, this is one of those plants they want to water, foliage, everything. They will hold up in really bright light, I've noticed. I always thought they wanted like phalaenopsis light. Nope, they want it pretty bright. I've pushed one to bloom by putting it underneath my vandas. And at my house, my vandas get watered every other day. Because I'm just not out there every day. So, okay? Go ahead.
Can you cut this piece?
Oh yeah, I should have.
Okay. I mean,
A lot of that.
I like to do it, but
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no, they're totally brown. They should have been cut when the flowers fell off. Go ahead.
When they flower, do you water it just as often?
Yes. Yes. And with lady slippers, you don't want any water left in the pouches. Okay? Because it'll stain the flower. Okay, what up? Yep.
Should you leave the stems when they're
No, cut them
green?
away. No, cut them away. When they get finished blooming, they're done. There's nothing going to happen again on that stem. Okay, any other questions on slippers? Okay. That's great. Oncidiums. Bulby, leafy oncidiums. I pulled this one. This is a cherry baby. One of my favorite plants. They're right in there on the left. These are the ones people say smell like chocolate.
Oh.
Okay?
Oh, yeah.
And the other reason I pulled this is because, look at this. Does everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
So anybody who ever buys a cherry baby, welcome to cherry baby life. It's in all of them. It doesn't go away. It's not something you've done wrong. It's just in the plant. You can't imagine how many people have been like, look at the spots on my cherry baby. I'm just kidding. Okay? So that was a really big reason why I pulled this, and I'll let you see it, but there's nothing you can do to keep those spots away. Okay? It's just a natural occurrence that happens with them. It's really wet too. Now when the plant is really young, this is a young cherry baby. You don't see that. But as soon as that plant gets a little larger, please, the spots will come. I guarantee. Okay? Back to cherry babies. Oncidiums. Usually they're the ones with these pseudobulbs. They're really tiny ones. The pseudobulb thing, it's a water storage. And it also throws out where the flower spikes are coming from. Most all the time it's going to bloom on the newest growth. So this plant, last time it bloomed here, right here, on this growth. The new growth is coming off the front of that growth. And then I have a new growth coming over here. These are the two places I'm going to watch for new bloom spikes, okay? As your plant gets older, especially with oncidiums, I've been a little taken aback by, hey, that one's bloomed and now it's going to bloom again. It's all about on either side. As your plants get older, it can bloom from both sides of the pseudobulb, not just one. So some of the plants will bloom, like Kenneth Bibbins, it will bloom one side, and then 3 months later, all of a sudden, why is that bloom? It's coming out the other side. Go ahead.
When the pseudo bulbs are full, they're all plump. So if you get wrinkles, you need to worry about it.
The new ones need to be plump and pretty. like that one that's going around. When you look at the newest ones, they're all plump and pretty. The oldest growth is where they're shrinking. It's just a natural occurrence.
Okay.
Now, if that new one wasn't plump, I'd say, yeah, they need to water it. But the old ones, they just do that.
Okay.
I haven't seen one yet that's all plump all the way around. Okay?
Yep.
With oncidiums and these pseudobulbs, these bulby things at the bottom, you need 3 of those bulbs connected to make a viable plant. Okay? Not just one. You need at least 3. At least. Here, he would push me to go more like 5. 5 growths for a bare root. Okay? So the bigger your bare root, the quicker it's going to grow out, actually, too. With oncidiums, again, you want to base it the same way. You've got all these aerial roots, cut them back, take them out of the pot, remove that old media, start with fresh. They tend to, light degree with oncidiums is all over the board. There's no set rule for them. I tend to keep them in a little brighter light, especially brighter than a phalaenopsis. Okay? Okay. What other questions you got about oncidiums? They mount. They also go in trees. They'll do any of that.
How do you mount them? You gotta have at least a 3 triplicate.
Yeah, you have to have at least 3 of those suitable to put them against a tree.
High.
Yep, as tight as you can. So,
I have a general question
Yep.
about repotting. So I had a plant in the plastic, and when I took it out, the roots are like welded together, like just. And so do I pull them all apart?
get it wet. Get it wet.
Well, I had to get it wet to get it out of the pot.
The roots should have gotten a lot pliabler once you get it really wet. But if the
And
roots are,
so you still pull them all apart, all of the media that's.
if the media, or you can like stick your finger through there and go here to there and shove it through there. Any way you can get that media out. But you gotta make sure those roots are alive. Because if they're nice and white and plump, then okay. But if they're brown and yucky, you gotta get them out. And again, you're gonna gauge that pot size by the root ball in your hand. Okay?
Yeah, thanks for that.
Go ahead.
Do you have to keep them like 3 or 4 bulbs, or would you have them in a big basket and let them continue to grow?
You mean take this and put it in a big basket?
Uh-huh.
You can't take it and put it in much bigger of a pot. You can do this.
Okay.
You don't want to do this. Okay? Again, that's way over potting your orchid. Okay? Okay.
Those you would pot in the center then, right? As opposed to the den where you put it in the spot.
Well, it depends. You want to look at it. Her question was, you will plant this in the center, and this one because yeah, in orchids, the lowest growth is where the orchid started. It's not babies coming up. It's where the orchid started. Okay, so that's what this is. This is where the orchid started. As you can see, everything else is getting bigger and bigger, and so a lot of this little stuff is just not going to be very desirable. There you go.
So you would pot that and then melt it.
I would take this out of the pot and take all the media away and then melt it. I would repot it if I'm going to melt it.
Okay, so it doesn't need the medium if you pot it. I mean, if you melt it,
No.
it doesn't need all that medium up in it. Okay.
No, but you change your watering practices as soon as you mount it. Because you've taken all that media away. And then you have to up the water. Okay. Does everybody understand that? Thank you. My spotty sherry there.
And you would cut those aerial roots, or leave
I
it
would.
if you
I
were
would.
repotting?
Well, if you're repotting it, yes, I would take the roots away. If you're just sticking it to them out, I wouldn't worry about it unless they're dead. It's perfect time to take those dead ones away. Okay. Any more questions about oncidiums? Okay, good. Okay, we're on to the last one. Cattleyas. And I say Cattleya, you can say Cattleya. You can say it any way you want. For me, they're cats. Okay? Cats are the ones that, when I was in school, we wore on our hands, and at Easter, they put them on our chest and our Sunday best. Cattleyas. Well, oh, here we go again. I tend to let my plants go out of the pot because one, Milton hit, two, I don't care. It's not really bothering me anymore. I worked here long enough to realize this is not a big deal. Okay? Okay. This actually was in the Venice show just in February. I just didn't notice the small thing, big thing in a little pot. Okay? Okay, cattleyas. Ooh, wow, look at all those roots. Someone asked me last time, and I meant to pick up some hand sanitizer. You can sanitizer on your hand in between plants to, again, keep from spreading things. Okay? Or you can wash them with soap and water. Your choice. Okay, back to, here we go. I'm cutting all those aerial roots right off. And I've got to cut them off the bottom of the pot, out. And I'm looking at a lot of them when I ripped it out of the basket the last time, or ripped it out of its tray. I finished a lot of roots. When I stake my plants for show, I stake them, and yes, I do damage a lot of roots. But it seems to happen to you. So when I repot it, I'm going to take them away, and off it's going to go. Yep. I have a hammer. Sorry. I warned someone about sitting in front. I'm doing anything I can to get this out of this plastic pot. Yeah, it's getting there. But cutting a pot is not to do well. Yeah. Okay. So there you go. That's this is a Dick Smith paradise. Yep, I got a lot of roots in there, but still, here I go. Take my bag out. Again, I put it right on there that I'm repotting it today. I stuck my hand right up the middle of it, and again, I'm just pulling all that mix away. It's starting to go, really mushy. Cut these little flower spikes.
Can you mount those?
You can. Cattleyas are easy to mount. They can go on any of these mounts. You can put them in a basket. They're very, very versatile. Most cattleyas are going to have a fragrance somewhere in their lifetime. So when you see them open and you stick your nose in it and it's not fragrant, go back in a couple days. Okay, here we go. Again, this cattleya and all cattleyas are on rhizomes. So you can see all this growth, the little stuff here, this is where the plant started. And every time it's gotten bigger and bigger.
So if I'm going to mount it, I have to cut back the roots.
Plant that in the pot, you plant it so that the first one is way up against the side of the pot, and the other.
We'll go through that. Okay, I want to mount it first, and then I'll put it in the pot. Okay, mounting. You can use cork. We talked a little bit about tree fern. You can use clay and mount. It really, anything you mount, just make sure if you go for the driftwood that your mount is firm. Okay? On cattleyas, I know my newest growth is going to come out from the front, where it bloomed last. Okay? So I'm going to make sure to get that as close to the mount as I can. Okay? The new growth, I want, if they grow up, no matter what you do. So I always face my new growth up. Okay? You can do it like this as well, but So really, it's your preference. You just need to make sure to get those first leads where the new roots are going to come out against that mount. Now I can take some of this back growth off and slide this down some because this is not a very good sized mount for it. Go ahead.
If you do that with this plant this spring, like right now as you're doing, springtime, will it bloom this? Will it bloom?
It
or
just
will
bloomed.
It skip a bloom?
It just bloomed. It will bloom
So
again
do
in
it after
February.
a bloom.
Cork is another mounting process. Again, I would stick this at the very bottom so it can grow all the way up the cork. Okay, you can use twisty tie, that green stuff. You can use zippy ties. Sorry, that's what I know them by. Zippy ties. Okay, if you go with zippy ties, go back and check them after you see your plant is really rooted to your mount, because sometimes these can slice right through. Okay, so just check them on occasion, because you have to have it as tight as you can against this mount in order to get it to root. Does that make sense? Okay, drill a hole, put a nail through there, wire, and hang it. Okay?
And light for those?
Cattleyas do bright, really bright.
More so than a Oncidium or less?
I keep mine in more light than an Oncidium, but less light than a Dendrobium.
Yep. Alright.
Okay? Cattleyas I water in a pot once a week. Okay, in a hot lady. She's still here? Wanted to see it in a pot? Okay. So if I don't take any of those back bulbs off, I would probably go ahead and stick this in a 6-inch pot. I'm like, that just doesn't look right to me.
Yeah.
Okay? So I can go back here and I can take just a few. So again, I'm just gonna pop it right out there. And still I'm like, but okay, I might go for that. Or let's see what it looks like in a 5-inch.
You need to keep 3 of those again?
At least 3 of them to make a viable plant. That's too small.
Yeah.
Okay, so yep, it would have to go in a 6-inch pot. The other thing is I could put it in a basket and hang it. We didn't talk about baskets either. As you see, that panda's in a basket. The same subject thing, you make sure that you put that butt in where I just snap those 2 leaves off on one side of the basket.
Medium or no medium?
It's your preference. You can do either or. If you don't use medium, you gotta water more often. If you put medium in a basket, you still have to water it more often because you're hanging your plant, it's getting a lot more air circulation, but not as often as if you're having medium. Does that make sense?
But if it was out where it could get rained one in the rainy season, you'd be better off without medium.
And with something like this, probably. No, it really wouldn't matter if it's fresh medium, but if it's old medium, and you definitely don't want to leave anything planted in stagnant moss out where the rain can get it. Okay? Unless you know that plant can hold up and stop in water, you don't want to leave anything in sphagnum moss out in the rain. Go ahead.
I was wondering, I have with my Cattleyas in the past, repotted with lava rock and stones.
You just have to water more often. It's just a different medium.
Okay.
So when would you use this? What else?
Me, personally, never. I don't grow phalaenopsis. Sorry, we didn't do phalaenopsis, and I'll get one real quick. But I was just going somewhere else. Okay, Cattleyas, we just mounted one. I just wanted to point out, because I often say that if you see a spot on your leaves and it has a halo on it, you need to remove it. Okay? If it's just a spot and there's no halo, don't worry about it. It's probably mechanical damage. But I know something's wrong because I can see that halo and it's going to work its way down the leaf. Okay? Everybody see that?
So you remove the whole leaf or just the spot?
I'm getting there. I'll be right with you, ma'am. First thing I'm going to do is sterilize my clippers. And I really want to get them hot. Because I want to hear that when I cut part of the leaf wood. And you can cut it in the general shape of the leaf, but okay, you can cut it out of the leaf. Old wives' tale, which when I came to work here, he's like, cinnamon right on the cut edge. But check your label because evidently we have a lot of synthetic cinnamon around. And if it's not pure cinnamon, you don't need to use it. Okay? That was like, oh, okay. So the spot thing I wanted to show. Cattleyas, we went over the light, pot, or mount. Does anybody have any questions about cattleyas?
I noticed some of the ones that are mounted in trees, they have Spanish moss around the root bases. Is that something to do, or?
It's up to you. Spanish moss is a Pointia. It's just a vermilia that grows in our trees. I don't know if they placed it there. I know a lot of growers will use it. I'm always concerned if you wrap it, that you've got all that moisture, because it does get gross when you start packing it in there. So I'm going to tell you, not something, I'm not sure if they placed it there or if the storm blew it in.
We noticed it in a couple trees.
It might be the
It's
storm.
like they just put it up in there. Okay.
Sorry, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I haven't seen those recently. There's so much to see here.
I have a question. So I have those on a piece of tree, and it's all over, but the roots are really like a lot. And I don't see any progress since last year. They are not really green, but kind of like yellow. I don't have any new roots, anything like that. They've been always in head shade with the water every morning shadow, kind of like. Yeah, and I should move it to the area where I put all my orchids. It's very humid under the sun.
What is this now? And do you have a picture? Because I'm like, okay, it's a cattleya.
Yeah, and it have a lot of roots. The roots are white, but when you get wet, all the tips are green.
But then they're fine.
So they're good, but I don't have any
Flowers?
new growing, any nothing since last year.
I'm probably going to say, check your light. Because
And being in a headlight and water every day.
did you lose the canopy out of your trees? Usually it shouldn't interfere with the blooming season, but hey, who knows?
Nothing new.
We just had all those storms. You're finding out what's happening. I'm going to get a foul real quick. Okay, Phalaenopsis. Everybody starts with vowels. It always happens to everybody. This is an orchid. Okay? These are the longest lasting flower there is. The other thing about Phalaenopsis is it's the one orchid they force into bloom. That's why you see them year round. Okay? Our blooming season here is late winter, early spring. All the Phalaenopsis that I've been exposed to recently have all been planted in sphagnum moss. And we went over that sphagnum moss thing. It's very, very water retentive. And that's why they use it. So they don't have to water these phals, but like once every 2 weeks. Okay? So if you're growing Phalaenopsis in bark, and it's straight bark, I'm going to tell you to water them heavy once a week. If you're growing them in sphagnum moss, I'm going to tell you check it after 10 days. It might not need water for 2 weeks.
And they can tolerate
This is really damp. So as long as the roots are dry, no. But if it's damp moss, because again, that sphagnum moss is a whole lot of moisture.
what I'm saying is they don't root raw.
Yeah, yes they do. Especially if they're kept too wet. So her question was they don't root rot in that, and I'm like, yeah, they do.
I mean, I would think they would.
I got a bunch of dead roots here. So the other thing is those aerial roots that come out on Phalaenopsis. You just see them with all this hair coming out. Again, those are aerial roots. And if you try to put them in a pot with media, they're gonna rot on you. Okay? So cut them away. Okay, so I got this phal. They're rooted. The bloom spike is here. It's where it bloomed this time around. The next time it bloomed, it's going to come out above it in a different way. It produces a whole new spike every year. Might produce 2, some of them produce multiples. Okay? If it's not producing a new spike every year, something's wrong. And you got to get it into brighter light. Okay? Phalaenopsis, or the lowest light orchid there is. So the other thing I always make a point of saying is if you're keeping all your orchids together and your Phalaenopsis are blooming and nobody else is, bingo, nobody else is getting enough light. Okay? Okay, so again, you can see I don't have very many roots on here. I pulled off a few more. When you have a string left behind like this and it blocks the texture of the outside, they call it Pythium root rot. It's very common. I'm not really worried about it because it just happens, especially on Phalaenopsis. You can pop those bottom leaves off. The other way you can remove a lot of orchid leaves. They usually have a margin line down the middle. You can split them and pop them on either side.
Better than cutting.
Doesn't matter. They're usually the root or something that comes right in there, so sometimes it can be better. I'm not saying all the time. Okay, well, not very many roots there. So, this is the pot I took it out of. I'm going to put it right back in that same pot. With these soft pots like this, we haven't been using styrofoam. So, what I do when I'm repotting them like this is I'll throw them upside down. And I'll put a wad of moss in there. And then turn it up. And pack a little more around the side. So I have a ball in my hand.
If you have a Phalaenopsis in moss, can you repot it?
In bark? Yes, you can. You just gotta up the water. Okay? Okay, so now I get to put some more moss in there. I'm gonna make this plant, try to get it in the middle of the pot and as stable as possible. But I don't wanna pack it full. I'm gonna get it some moss in there, but if I pack it full, then I run the risk of it rotting because it's so thick with moss. That make sense? Okay.
Is it false to say in Phalaenopsis the roots are aerated?
I'm sorry?
That doesn't have any holes in the sides.
You're right, it doesn't.
And do they or don't they like air to get to the roots?
All orchids like air.
Okay.
This is just a commercial operation.
Okay. So that's not would be the best pot for a person who would do it.
No, I wouldn't.
Okay.
Now I will grow some of my Phalaenopsis in sphagnum moss, and did I even put them in clay? No, I put them. I did keep them in clay and sphagnum, and that will tend to dry out faster.
Because it's clay.
Correct. Right. And it sucks the moisture out of the moss. Go ahead.
At what point would you cut the stem off the bloom?
The bloom spike. I actually should have done it now. Cut it back as close as I could to the plant. Okay, with Phalaenopsis in those bloom spikes. Go ahead.
What do you do when I was gifted some old ones and they're really overgrown?
The spike is. Or the plant.
The whole plant.
It's playing out of the pot?
Yeah.
All those processes I just went through.
Can you cut that off?
Yes, you can, but you have to put it in a small pot because you don't have any roots.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's got aerial roots, but not.
Don't try it with aerial roots. You need to cut through the crown. And whatever roots you got left, that's what you're going to age your pots like. I put huge plants in very little pots. Okay? And then I also know that once that plant, if it, all of a sudden I see all these roots coming out, because I just repotted that, then I would move it up. Put it in a little bit bigger pot with more media without going through the repotting process. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I saw a video on YouTube where the lady took the aerial roots and kind of tried to.
Yeah, don't watch that shit. Sorry, I don't mean it that way.
That's why I'm here.
I go on the internet on occasion and I see this. Oh, feed your orchids potato water. Oh, feed your orchids rice water. Oh, do this to your orchid. Oh, do this.
Ice cubes.
Oh, ice cubes.
Yeah.
No.
What about pulverized eggshells?
Yeah, pulverized eggshells. Are you fertilizing your plant with fertilizer?
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Okay?
Can you repot it when they have flowers?
No. If you repot an orchid when it's blooming, you run the risk of all the flowers blasting. You want to wait till it's finished blooming and then repot.
If they always have that stem there, because they keep growing and they flower, how you do it?
Just cut the spikes away.
I have a lot of orchids in those pots, and they come out, and they're so big, and they have so much flowers.
So then we didn't get to the bloom spikes. Okay, on Phalaenopsis, these spikes come out. It blooms. It's beautiful. All those flowers drop away. There's your dilemma. Am I going to cut the spike all the way back to the plant? Am I going to leave the spike on? And it is a dilemma. There are so many different ways to deal with that. The commercial operation that I worked in, when the plants lost all their flowers, we cut the spikes, dumped them out, repotted them, put them on bench for next year. That was just the way we did it. If you do not cut the spikes, it can bloom out of the nodes on the spike, all up and down, as long as the spike is still viable and not dried up. Okay? And again, it's like flip a coin. Okay? The one thing I will tell you is if you have a Phalaenopsis and it's been blooming and blooming and blooming, and you water it and it doesn't perk back up, and you water it again and it doesn't perk back up, and it's still got all those flower blooms on it, cut them all away. You're stressing your plant out. It's been blooming for too long.
Yeah.
Oh. And Phalaenopsis are the one plant that I can honestly say they can do that. Oh.
How long did you cut the stem?
I would go as close to the plant as I can. So I didn't sterilize my clippers, but I'm going to go right in here. Okay? Okay. What other questions do we got? Go ahead.
How about if you don't want a pot?
I'm sorry?
Oh, if you want to mount the beds?
You can do that too. But again, these are low light, so you got to keep them in a really shady area. They do mount them. And I would say, that would be the one plant that I might consider putting some moss between the plant and but I'd get it under somewhere where I could control the water.
I have those in between my palms. The big leaves coming out. I cut it. I open up. They have a brown sheet. I open up and I put inside there. That's how I put a lot of those, and it looks good.
Yep, they will. They'll stick to palms. They'll stick. The only thing that an orchid doesn't really stick to or want to stick to are pine trees. I've got them on ligustrums. I have these beautiful vines that are woody in the bottom. I got orchids shoved in the bottom of my vines because it's ugly, but those orchids make it look beautiful. I also have air plants the same way. Orchids, as I have said, are epiphytes, so some people spill into the air plant group, which are pretty much the same care. Okay? What other questions? Go ahead. I give it a whirl. We'll see what happens. After everybody leaves, you can bring it up here. Any other questions? Go ahead.
I have one that overgrew, and I thought, well, I can't get the roots off of it, so I thought I was told to put it inside a bigger pot and just let it go from there.
That's okay, but you get pots inside of pots, and it gets a little hairy and you start popping out the pots.
Yeah.
Okay? And you end up cutting them away. Yeah, I have a friend of mine that has pots inside of pots. There's a lot of pots inside of pots here. It sure does beat not repotting them. Yeah. Put it in a bigger pot. And I wouldn't put it in around it.
Question: the black spots, the halo can be any color. That's bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you see a halo growing, it can be orange, yellow, but it's a whole halo.
But a black
around it.
spot alone is not.
It shouldn't be a problem at all. There's a lot of mechanical damage that happens to your plants. Birds, squirrels, dogs, all kinds of things get on your plants. I have a fan that the metal's gone bad on, and all of a sudden it's like, what's wrong with my? It's the metal out of the fan that's catching my leaves. So. Any other questions?
I've got one. What's your thought on mounting the pressure treated pine?
It doesn't work.
No.
It doesn't work. Nope, especially with pressure treated.
So
and pressure treated wood, no.
So we buy them, we leave them, kind of snowbirding, and we put them in the palm frond.
Okay.
Is there a direction? We've got north, south, east, west.
If it's a Phalaenopsis, you want to make sure to keep it out of the sun side. That's pretty much all I can tell you there. Okay. Off the sun side. I used to say plant them all on the south side to block them from the north wind, but then I realized that the south side gets a lot of sun at certain times of the year.
Thank you.
Okay? Any other questions?
It's a question about the lanai and the screen. How much light do you feel the screen filters? Like if I put it one out right in the sun?
Your screen should have a SUV content on it. What yours is, I don't know.
Who knows? I just bought the house a year ago. So.
Some of it's 20%.
Yeah, right.
When you talk to someone about orchids, if you have them in a screen enclosure, you need to include that. Because a lot of people will tell me, oh, I have it out in sun. And then it's like, but it's in your screen enclosure.
Right.
So
So that's technically probably not full sun.
Correct. It is technically not full sun.
Water softener water.
No water softener water. Okay. Anything else? Okay, I'm done.
Thank you.